Next is an Old Testament lesson, an exquisite story from 2 Kings chapter 5, the story of Naaman. It occurs during the prophetic ministry of Elisha, having succeeded Elijah, and it has to do with the son of King Ahab, whose wife Jezebel was pursuing Elijah. So now we have the next generation, Elisha and Jehoram, who is not mentioned by name here, but who is the king of Israel and the son of Ahab, who was a very, very bad, idolatrous king. But Jehoram, his son, is pretty good, but has an off-and-on relationship with both God and the prophet. And this is an interesting story, chapter 5, 1 through, I'm going to read through 19. Full half of the chapter. Naaman, commander of the army of the king of Aram, which is modern-day Syria, and he's in Damascus, same place, different time. Naaman, the commander of the army of the king of Aram, was a great man, and in high favor with his master, the king, because by him the Lord had given victory to Aram. The man, though a mighty warrior, suffered from leprosy. Now the Arameans, on one of their raids, had taken a young girl captive from the land of Israel, and she served Naaman's wife. She said to her mistress, "If only my Lord were with the prophet who is in Samaria, he would cure him of his leprosy." So Naaman went in and told his lord, the king, just what the girl from the land of Israel had said. And the king of Aram said, "Go then, and I will send along a letter to the king of Israel." He, Naaman, went, taking with him 10 talents of silver, 6,000 shekels of gold, and 10 sets of garments. He brought the letter to the king of Israel, which read, "When this letter reaches you, know that I have sent you my servant Naaman, that you may cure him of his leprosy." When the king of Israel read the letter, he tore his clothes and said, "Am I God to give death or life that this man sends word to me to cure a man of his leprosy? Just look and see how he's trying to pick a quarrel with me." But when Elisha, the man of God, heard that the king of Israel had torn his clothes, he sent a message to the king. "Why have you torn your clothes? Let him come to me, that he may learn that there is a prophet in Israel." So Naaman came with his horses and chariots and halted at the entrance of Elisha's house. Elisha sent a messenger to him, saying, "Go, wash in the Jordan 7 times, and your flesh shall be restored, and you shall be clean." But Naaman became angry and went away, saying, "I thought that for me he would surely come out and stand and call on the name of the Lord God, and would wave his hand over the spot and cure the leprosy. Are not Abana and Pharpar, the rivers of Damascus, better than all the waters of Israel? Could I not wash in them and be clean?" He turned and went away in a rage. But his servants approached him and said, "Father, if the prophet had commanded you to do something difficult, would you not have done it? How much more when all he said to you was, 'Wash and be clean'?" So he went down and immersed himself 7 times in the Jordan, according to the word of the man of God. His flesh was restored like the flesh of a young boy, He was clean. Then he returned to the man of God, he and all his company. He came and stood before him and said, "Now I know that there is no God in all the earth except in Israel. Please accept a present from your servant." But he, Elisha, said, "As the Lord lives, whom I serve, I will accept nothing." Naaman urged him to accept, but Elisha refused. Then Naaman said, "If not, please let 2 mule loads of earth be given to your servant, for your servant will no longer offer burnt offerings or sacrifice to any god except the Lord. But may the Lord pardon your servant on one account. When my master goes into the house of Rimmon, the god of Aram, to worship there, and he's leaning on my arm, and I bow down with him in the house of Rimmon. When I do bow down in the house of Rimmon, may the Lord pardon your servant on this one account." And Elisha said to him, "Go in peace." The word of the Lord. I love this story, and so many stories, the parables of Jesus. It's like a great lyric. My favorite lyric is Pancho and Lefty. And I love the lyric because the story is between the lines. There is so much between the lines. I've read this story again and again for years and years. And every time I read it, more leaps out between the lines. So let me share what I've got this time, and maybe you'll see some more as we go along through it. And then maybe a couple of summary points. Naaman, the commander of the army of Aram, he's a Gentile, dirty dog. He's the enemy of Israel. He's the bad guys. Now this is a story in the Bible about Gentile enemies. And Naaman is not quite the protagonist, perhaps, but the object of God's love and mercy. Because the Lord, the God of Israel, has given Aram victory over Israel, the enemy. God has given them victory over Israel through this man Naaman. And therefore he's loved by the people, and he's the king's favorite, and he has the favor of God. He's a great man of high favor, and God has given him victory. Wow. And if I'm an Israelite, a Jew, reading this, I'm kind of set back on my heels. It's like Jesus' parables. They set you back, kind of surprises all the way through. That's the first surprise. The second has to do with this little girl. Now the Arameans, that's the army of Aram, led by Naaman, on one of their raids had taken a young girl captive from the land of Israel. How do you think that little girl was taken? And what do you think happened to her mother and father when she was taken in a raid? How was she taken from her family? She witnessed the death of her parents by the soldiers under the command of Aram. And this young girl served Naaman's wife. She was now the servant of the wife of the commander of the army. And listen to what she says. It's amazing, this girl. She says to her mistress, Naaman's wife, "If only my Lord were with the prophet who is in Samaria, he would cure him of his leprosy." And so you have this Israelite slave girl. In this story, she is the lowest of the lowest. She's the nobody, giving the secret message to Naaman's wife. Sympathetic to her master. There is grace and the Holy Spirit all over this story. And he would cure him of his leprosy. So, Naaman went. What you don't know is the conversation that night between Naaman and his wife about the story. But Naaman went in and told his lord what the girl had said. And the king of Aram said, "Go then, and I will send along a letter to the king of Israel." Okay, so this is now a diplomatic mission with diplomatic protocol. And it is very respectful. king of Aram does not presume to send Naaman directly to the prophet who is under the authority, he presumes, of the king of Israel. Of course, it's just the opposite. The king of Israel is under the authority of the prophet, but he doesn't know that. And it looks like at this point, the king is a little bit on the outs with the prophet, because this is the response. Well, listen to the story. So he goes. He takes silver and gold and garments, all of this stuff as presents to give to somebody as a token of goodwill. And he comes in this retinue that the king of Aram dares to send the commander of his army, the enemy of Israel, straight into the enemy's land and straight to the king with this plea. Interesting, here's the letter. The letter says, "When this letter reaches you, know that I have sent my servant Aram, that you may cure him of his leprosy." So what is the king of Aram assuming? The king of Aram is assuming, see, that the story was about the prophet, but the king of Aram assumes that the king of Israel will say, "Oh yeah, well, I've got a prophet. We'll send him to him," of course. But the king of Israel does not appear to be the sharpest tack in the drawer. And he says, "Look, who am I to do this?" It's as if he doesn't even know he's got a prophet. Who am I? He's trying to pick a fight with me. But, and it's between the lines, you don't know it, but somehow Elisha gets word. So Elisha has messengers. Elisha knows what's going on in the king's court. The slaves, the servants, the people that have the most sense in this story, pass the message on to Elisha. So Elisha hears what the king of Israel is doing, tearing his clothes and all, getting all upset. "Why are you upset? Let him come to me." Dumbbell. "Let him come to me, and he can know that there is a prophet in Israel. You may not know it, but he can know it." So Naaman comes with his horses and chariots and retinue, and all implied later he has his wealth there with him, the gifts. And I guess the king of Israel doesn't presume to take the gold and the silver until after Naaman is cured. It's kind of a pain, quid pro quo. But so he sends, Naaman comes with his horses and his chariots and his big retinue and all this fancy stuff to Elisha's modest little house out in the country. And the prophet doesn't come out to see him. He sends a messenger out and tells him, "Go wash in the Jordan 7 times, and your flesh will be restored and you'll be clean." And Naaman gets all angry. "Here I am, I've come all this distance. I'm Aram, I'm Naaman, I'm the commander of the army. I'm somebody, and the prophet won't even come out to see me, pay any attention to me. I assume that at least for me, he would come out and pray to the Lord and wave his hand and, make it to do." But it's important to Elisha not to give any mind to the importance of Naaman or all of his money or any of his prestige. He just tells him, "Go wash in the river." And in that way, of course, it is humiliating and humbling. But that is the point. And the prophet doesn't even come out to see him, because the prophet wants to be very clear that he doesn't have anything to do with this healing. Naaman doesn't have anything to contribute to this. Naaman doesn't have anything that he can pay or do or gain respect or make the God of Israel owe him anything. And Elijah himself, the prophet, is not responsible for what God does. So he doesn't come out. He doesn't participate. Go wash. Now, he's angry. He's storming off in a huff. But his servants approached him. Here we have the servants again, the least, the nobodies. And the servants approach him. Now, if you were one of the servants of an angry general, would you approach him? You'd keep your distance, right? So one has to say there's something remarkable about these servants. They respect and care for their master. and they have come since. I think there's a lot of courage and leadership in the least of these in this story. So the servants approach him and say, Father, humble, placing themselves as children and father, right in the face of this angry man. If the prophet had asked you to do something difficult, wouldn't you have done it? So how much more when he just says, go wash and be clean? They talk sense. They get this commander, this brilliant commander, to get out of his angry zone into his head zone and think, and what have I got to lose? This is leprosy after all. It's my whole life at stake. So he goes all the way down to the Jordan. There's a lot of travel going on here. Elisha is up in the high country and goes all the way down to the valley, to the Jordan, and washes 7 times. 1, 2, 3, getting bored yet? 4, 5, this is enough, isn't it? 6, 7. He has to thoroughly humble himself. And he comes out of the water and he's clean, just as the prophet said. Restored like the flesh, one of the translations says, of a baby. This one tries to say young boy, or whatever. Brand new flesh. And so he returns to the man of God, and this time, it's Elisha, and this time Elisha is there to meet him. And he comes up to Elisha, the healing's been accomplished, and he says, now Elisha hasn't himself uttered a single word directly to Naaman at this point. He just sent a servant to say, go wash in the Jordan 7 times. That's the only thing that Elisha said. So he comes up to the silent, standing man of God, and he says, now I know there is no God in the whole world except the God of Israel. Please let me give you something. Please accept a gift. Present. But Elisha says, as the Lord lives, whom I serve, I will accept nothing. Elisha is unwilling to take any credit for the miracle that God has done. He wants to be very clear, this is God, and not him, and he will not accept a present. And then Naaman says, if not, then please let me take 2 mule loads of dirt. Give me 2 mule loads of dirt that I can take back with me. He's only going to worship the God of Israel, so in order to do that, he needs to take a piece of Israel back with him. Got it? So in their thinking, in his thinking, is the God of Israel. He hasn't quite got us the God of all the earth. But he knows that the God of Israel is the only God, but if he's going to worship that God, he has to take Israel with him so that that God will be there. His theology is lousy. But the prophet doesn't disparage his theology. And God doesn't disparage his theology. His theology is wrong, but his heart's in the right place. He wants to worship only the God of Israel. And this last part has been very fertile for me. I'm going to say, talk about this for a while, a little bit. But, says Naaman, may the Lord pardon your servant on one count. When my master the king goes into the house of Rimmon, who is the god of Aram, and of course the king worships the god of Syria, or of Aram, and when my master the king goes in to worship there, leaning on my arm, they're to go in together because he's supporting the king. And he's leaning on my arm. And I bow down in the house of Rimmon with my master. When I bow down in the house of Rimmon, may the Lord pardon your servant when I do that. In other words, it says, I'm only going to worship this only one God, but I have this duty. I have to go in with the king and bow down with him to Rimmon. May God pardon me for that. So I'm to this time, and here's what I think the prophet ought to say. Naaman, if you're going to worship the God of Israel, you need to be a Jew. You need to follow the law of Moses. You have to do it right. You can't just go on your own terms. You can't worship the God of Israel and do that. Gentiles can't do that. But this is what the prophet says, and I think this is startling at this time in the history of Israel. Go in peace. In other words, the prophet trusts Naaman and God to work out their relationship. He's convinced that what really matters has happened. His heart is given to the Lord. And he trusts God to monitor him. There's no law laid upon this grace. It's very much like when Peter sees the blanket come down out of heaven. Don't call unclean what God has called clean. And so here we are, right in the middle of the Old Testament, right in the middle of the age of the law of Moses, where all of the Israelites are pretty darn cocky and condemning about those Gentiles who don't even know the law, much less obey it. And any accomplishment, any prestige that Naaman has ever had has nothing to do with this sheer grace of God. And the prophet looks forward to the age of grace that is applied even to them. Go in peace. Go in peace. Now, I go a little further. What is Naaman's calling in life now? He worships Yahweh, and he's on the right arm of the king. He's with him every moment. He bows down and worships. I submit that Naaman is now the evangelist and the messenger of the God of Israel. He has to share this experience. Will not the king ask, what happened? What happened when I sent you down there? He has to say, this is what happened. This is how it happened. And how did that affect you, Naaman? So there's world evangelism going on in this story, in the sheer unconditional grace of God that is the same always, from the very beginning until the end, Alpha and Omega. And we are all like Naaman, lepers who don't have a thing to bring to God except our sin and our yielded hearts. Hallelujah.